The Garathian Empire stretched across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, encompassing over 10,000 star systems. For 5 millennia, they had ruled with technological superiority and military might that no species dared challenge. Their crystalline ships moved through space like silent predators, powered by dark energy cores that bent the fabric of reality itself. Commander Zareth stood on the bridge of the Imperial Dreadnought Dominance, his 4 arms clasped behind his elongated torso as he gazed through the view screen at the small blue planet below. Earth, such an insignificant world, barely worth the Empire's attention. The inhabitants called themselves humans, though the Garathians had cataloged them simply as species 4891, another primitive race to be absorbed or eliminated. The reconnaissance reports are complete, Commander, Lieutenant Vexera announced, her tentacles dancing over the holographic controls. The humans possess nuclear fission technology, primitive spacecraft limited to their own solar system, and their military forces are divided among hundreds of separate nations. They pose no threat to the Empire. Zareth's mandibles clicked in amusement. No threat indeed. Their broadcasts show constant internal conflict. They fight among themselves over resources, ideology, even the color of their skin. How could such a fractured species possibly stand against the unified might of the Empire? The tactical assessment had been straightforward. Earth's population of 8 billion could be subjugated within 3 rotations of their planet. The humans' projectile weapons and explosive devices were thousands of years behind Garathian shield technology. Their fastest aircraft moved at speeds that Garathian children's toys could exceed. Most importantly, they had no concept of the galactic community, no allies to call upon, no understanding of the forces arrayed against them. "Shall I prepare the submission broadcast, Commander?" Vexera asked. The standard protocol was simple: demand immediate surrender, demonstrate superior firepower by destroying a major population center, then accept the inevitable capitulation. It had worked on thousands of worlds before. "Yes," Zareth commanded. "Target their largest city for the demonstration. New York, their records call it. A single plasma beam should suffice to eliminate it and show them the futility of resistance." As the weapons systems charged, Zareth reviewed the intelligence files on humanity one final time. Physically weak compared to most galactic species. No natural armor, no redundant organs, fragile bones that broke under minimal pressure. Their reaction times were sluggish, their senses limited to narrow spectrums of light and sound. They required constant intake of water and food, making them vulnerable to siege tactics. Even their reproduction was inefficient, producing only 1 or 2 offspring at a time after a gestation period that left their females vulnerable for months. The cultural analysis was even more damning. The humans devoted enormous resources to entertainment, comfort, and leisure. Their cities were filled with restaurants, theaters, and shops selling unnecessary goods. They spent more on cosmetics than on space exploration. Their military forces, while numerous, were primarily used for peacekeeping and humanitarian missions. The concept of total war seemed to have faded from their collective memory. "Broadcasting now," Vexera announced. The message was transmitted on all human communication frequencies simultaneously, translated into every major Earth language by the ship's AI. "Inhabitants of Earth," Zareth's voice boomed across the planet. "I am Commander Zareth of the Garathian Empire. Your world has been selected for integration into our galactic civilization. Surrender immediately, and you'll be treated as valued subjects. Resist, and face annihilation. You have one of your hours to respond. To demonstrate our power, observe the destruction of your city of New York." The plasma cannon aligned with its target. On the view screen, Zareth could see the sprawling metropolis, its primitive structures reaching toward the sky like the fingers of a drowning creature. Millions of humans went about their daily lives, unaware that death was moments away. "Fire," Zareth commanded. The beam lanced down from orbit, a column of superheated energy that should have vaporized everything in a 50-kilometer radius. Instead, it struck an invisible barrier 10 kilometers above the city and dispersed harmlessly into the atmosphere. What? Zareth's 4 eyes widened in shock. Lieutenant, report. Unknown, Commander. Our sensors detect no shield technology, no power signatures that could generate such a defense. It's as if the beam simply stopped. Before Vexera could complete her analysis, alarms shrieked across the bridge. Commander, we're detecting massive energy surges across the planet. Military installations are changing. Their primitive aircraft are being replaced by something else. On the view screen, Zareth watched in growing alarm as hangars opened across Earth's surface. What emerged weren't the slow, clumsy aircraft from the intelligence reports. These were sleek, angular vessels that defied conventional design. They had no visible propulsion systems, no weapon ports, yet they accelerated from the ground to orbit in seconds. How is this possible? Zareth demanded. Our intelligence said they had no space fleet. Commander, the communications officer interrupted, his voice trembling. We're receiving a response to our message. The main screen flickered, replacing the view of Earth with the image of a human. The man appeared middle-aged by human standards, wearing a simple black suit. His expression was calm, almost amused. Behind him stood others, men and women of various ethnicities, all sharing the same unsettling confidence. Commander Zareth, the human said in perfect Garathian, I'm General Harrison, representing the Unified Earth Defense Command. We've been expecting you. Expecting them? Zareth's mind raced. That was impossible. Earth had shown no signs of knowing about the galactic community. Your confusion is understandable, Harrison continued. You see, Commander, humanity has been aware of your empire for quite some time. We've been monitoring your communications, studying your technology, preparing for this moment. Did you really think a species that went from horse-drawn carriages to landing on our moon in less than a century hadn't noticed the signs of galactic civilization? The tactical display erupted with new contacts. Thousands of human vessels were emerging from hidden locations, underwater bases, underground facilities, even phasing in from what appeared to be pocket dimensions. Each ship was unique in design, but shared the same impossible characteristics. No detectable power source, no conventional weapons. Yet Zareth's instinct screamed danger. You made 2 critical errors, Commander, Harrison said. First, you assumed that because we fought among ourselves, we couldn't unite against an external threat. Human history shows the opposite. Nothing brings us together faster than a common enemy. Your transmission reached 8 billion humans simultaneously. Within minutes, every government, every military force, every able-bodied citizen was ready to defend our world. The human vessels had surrounded the Garathian fleet. Despite outnumbering the Empire's ships 100 to 1, they held position, waiting. Your second error, Harrison's smile turned predatory, was assuming that our public technology represented our true capabilities. You see, Commander, we learned long ago that appearing weak is often the greatest strength. Why reveal our hand when we could wait, prepare, and choose our moment? Vexera's tentacles flew over her controls. Commander, I'm detecting quantum signatures unlike anything in our database. Their ships aren't using any known propulsion or weapon systems. It's as if they're manipulating reality itself at a fundamental level we don't understand. That's because you've been thinking in 3 dimensions, Harrison explained. Humanity cracked the code of multidimensional physics decades ago. We've been conducting experiments in parallel realities, testing weapons in universes where Earth doesn't exist. Every human scientist, engineer, and garage tinkerer has been contributing to a secret database of knowledge. We call it the Prometheus Project. The lights on the bridge flickered. Impossible. The Dominance was powered by a dark energy core that could maintain operations for 1,000 years. Yet human ships were somehow interfering with it. You spoke of our physical weakness, Harrison continued. You're right. We are fragile. We die easily. That's precisely why we became the most dangerous predators our planet ever produced. We couldn't rely on strength or natural weapons. We had to become clever, adaptive, unpredictable. We had to become killers who could think. A new image appeared on screen, footage of Earth's history. Humans hunting mammoths with coordinated tactics. Ancient armies using terrain and weather to defeat superior forces. Scientists splitting atoms. Engineers building machines that could think. Every challenge we faced, we overcame through intelligence and cooperation. Disease? We created medicine. Starvation? We revolutionized agriculture. Natural disasters? We predicted and prepared for them. And when we discovered we weren't alone in the universe, we did what humans always do. We adapted. We prepared. We became something more dangerous than you can imagine. The human vessels began to move, flowing around the Garathian fleet in patterns that hurt to watch. They weren't just maneuvering in three-dimensional space. They were sliding between dimensions, existing in multiple places simultaneously. Now, Commander Zareth, Harrison's voice hardened. You have a choice. Leave our system immediately and inform your empire that Earth is off-limits, or discover exactly what apex predators are capable of when their pack is threatened. You have one of our minutes to decide. Zareth stood frozen. Everything about this situation defied logic. The humans couldn't have this technology. They couldn't have hidden it so perfectly. They couldn't have united so quickly. Yet the evidence was undeniable. Commander, Vexera whispered. Orders. For the first time in his military career, Zareth felt true fear. Not because of the human weapons or ships, but because of what they represented. A species that could hide its true nature so completely, that could appear weak while preparing for war, that could think in ways the Empire couldn't predict or understand. The timer on the screen showed 30 seconds remaining. Around them, human vessels continued their impossible dance, each movement perfectly coordinated despite the lack of any detectable communication between them. It was as if they shared a collective consciousness, a hive mind born not of technology, but of shared purpose. They're apex predators, Zareth murmured, the full implications hitting him. On Earth, apex predators weren't always the strongest or fastest. They were the ones that could adapt, that could think, that could turn any situation to their advantage. Humans hadn't conquered their planet through physical might. They had done it through intelligence, cooperation, and a ruthless drive to survive. And now they had turned those same traits toward the stars. The timer reached 0. General Harrison leaned forward, and, in his eyes, Zareth saw the cold calculation of species that had clawed its way to the top of their world's food chain through intelligence and determination. Time's up, Commander. What's your decision? Silence filled the bridge of the dominance as every Garathian officer waited for their commander's response. Through the view screen, General Harrison's patient expression never wavered, but behind him, holographic displays showed human vessels continuing their otherworldly movements. Each ship seemed to phase in and out of existence, creating afterimages that made tracking them impossible. Lieutenant Vexera, Zareth finally spoke, his voice steady despite the uncertainty churning within. Open a channel to the Imperial Senate. Priority 1 encryption. Commander, Vexera's tentacles trembled slightly. Protocol dictates we cannot retreat without engaging the enemy. The Senate will listen. Zareth cut her off, his 4 eyes fixed on the human general. Because what we've discovered here changes everything the Empire believes about warfare. Harrison's expression shifted to one of approval. A wise choice, Commander. While you make your call, perhaps you'd like to know exactly what you're dealing with. Consider it professional courtesy between soldiers. The main display split, showing Harrison on one side, while the other began displaying images of Earth's wildlife. Lions stalking prey, wolves coordinating hunts, Orcs using complex strategies to catch seals. And then humans. Every species on our planet evolved specialized tools for survival, Harrison explained. Fangs, claws, venom, armor. Humans. We got none of that. What we got instead was this. He tapped his temple. A brain capable of abstract thought, pattern recognition, and, most importantly, the ability to imagine scenarios that haven't happened yet. The images shifted to show early humans. Weak, slow, vulnerable. Yet they survived where stronger species perished. We couldn't outrun predators, so we learned to predict where they'd strike. We couldn't overpower prey, so we developed persistence hunting, following animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. We couldn't survive alone, So we formed communities, developed language, shared knowledge across generations. Every limitation forced us to become smarter, more creative, more dangerous. Zareth watched with growing unease as the display showed human history accelerating. From stone tools to metal weapons, from fire to nuclear energy, from walking to achieving orbit. The timeline was impossibly compressed compared to any other known species. But here's what really makes us apex predators. Harrison leaned back in his chair. We never stopped being afraid. Even after we dominated our planet, we kept looking for the next threat. We told stories about monsters, aliens, disasters. We imagined every possible way we could die and then figured out how to prevent it. Fear didn't paralyze us. It drove us to prepare for anything. The Prometheus Project, Zareth said slowly. How long? Officially? The moment we detected your first probe entering our system 40 years ago. Unofficially? Humans have been preparing for alien contact since we first looked up at the stars and wondered if we were alone. Every science fiction story, every theoretical physics paper, every garage inventor's wild idea, they were all preparation for this moment. The tactical display updated, showing energy readings from Earth that defied conventional understanding. Entire cities were drawing power from sources that didn't register on any known spectrum. Military bases flickered between dimensions, existing in multiple realities simultaneously. You want to know our real weapon, Commander? Harrison stood, and behind him, the other human representatives did the same. They were diverse in appearance, different colors, ages, genders, but their unity of purpose was palpable. It's not our technology. It's our psychology. We're a species of contradictions. We create art and wage war with equal passion. We'll sacrifice ourselves for strangers while plotting against our neighbors. We dream of peace while preparing for conflict. That cognitive flexibility, that ability to hold opposing ideas simultaneously, that's what makes us unpredictable. A junior officer at the communication station turned to Zareth. Commander, the Senate is connected. They're demanding an explanation for why we haven't begun the subjugation. Zareth straightened his uniform. Patch them through to the main viewer. They need to see this. The display expanded to show the Garathian Senate chamber, where a dozen ancient Garathians sat in their crystalline thrones. Supreme Chancellor Mordeth's 6 eyes narrowed as he took in the scene. Commander Zareth, explain why Earth still exists. Your orders were clear. Supreme Chancellor, Zareth began, the humans possess technology beyond our understanding. They've been hiding their true capabilities. Our entire intelligence assessment was wrong. Impossible. Mordeth's mandibles clicked dismissively. They're primitives. Our scouts. Your scouts saw exactly what we wanted them to see. Harrison interrupted, addressing the Senate directly. The humans' ability to hack into their most secure communication channels sent ripples of alarm through both the bridge and the Senate chamber. Just as your anthropologists studied us, we studied you. We learned your protocols, your assumptions, your blind spots. Did you know your scouts always focus on visible technology? That they discount entertainment media as irrelevant? Every one of our science fiction movies was actually a training simulation. Every video game taught our children tactical thinking. Every story about alien invasion was a strategic planning session disguised as entertainment. The Senate chamber erupted in outrage, but Harrison continued over their protests. You catalog species based on their strongest members, their most advanced technology, their unified achievements. But humans? We're not unified. We're 8 billion individuals, each one capable of independent thought, each one a potential vector for innovation. You can't predict us because we can't predict ourselves. Silence. Mordetrord. Commander Zareth, destroy these arrogant primates immediately. Before Zareth could respond, every screen on the bridge flickered. The lights dimmed, then returned with a different quality, softer, somehow more ominous. When the displays restored, they showed something impossible. The interior of the Senate chamber itself, but from angles that suggested the cameras were inside the room, despite no human presence there. About that, a new voice spoke. The screen showed a young human woman in a laboratory coat, surrounded by equipment that seemed to exist partially in multiple dimensions. I'm Dr. Sarah Chun, director of our Quantum Intrusion Division. Right now, we're demonstrating that distance means nothing when you can fold space-time. We could materialize antimatter bombs in your Senate chamber, or phase your entire planet into a dimension where physics works differently. We won't, because despite what you think, we're not monsters. But we could. The implications hit the Senate like a physical blow. If the humans could project force instantly across galactic distances, then every Garathian world was vulnerable. The Empire's greatest advantage, the vast distances between threats, meant nothing. You're lying, Chancellor Mordeth said, but uncertainty colored his words. This is deception, trickery. Snake venom is deception, Harrison replied calmly. A tiger's stripes are trickery. Nature favors any advantage in survival. And humans learn from the best teacher, a planet that killed 99% of all species that ever lived on it. We survive by being smarter than our environment, more adaptable than any challenge, more ruthless than any predator. Dr. Chin's image was replaced by footage from Earth. Not the carefully curated broadcast the Garathians had intercepted, but raw footage. Humans in extreme environments, diving to ocean depths that would crush most beings, climbing mountains where oxygen was scarce, living in deserts that reached lethal temperatures. Humans adapting, surviving, thriving in conditions that would kill supposedly superior species. We put ourselves through hell for fun, Harrison said. We seek out danger, test our limits, constantly push to see how far we can go. Your soldiers train for war. Our children play games more strategically complex than most military campaigns. Your scientists work on assigned projects. Our hobbyists accidentally discover fundamental forces of the universe in their basements. Zareth found himself studying the human vessels surrounding his fleet. Their movements had shifted, creating geometric patterns that somehow interfered with his ship's targeting systems. It wasn't aggression, it was demonstration. They were showing the Garathians how easily they could disable them without firing a shot. Commander, his weapons officer reported quietly, I'm detecting quantum entanglement signatures between their ships and something inside our vessel. They've somehow linked their systems to ours without any physical connection. Not somehow. Dr. Chen reappeared on screen. We call it quantum tunneling infiltration. Your shields stop energy and matter, but information? Information exists in a quantum state that your defenses can't block. Right now, we know every system on your ship, every protocol, every weakness. We could turn your own weapons against you, vent your atmosphere, or simply make your computers forget how to function. But we won't, Harrison added quickly. Because humans have another trait that makes us dangerous. We can choose not to kill. A wolf must hunt. A virus must spread. But humans? We can decide that today, violence serves no purpose. We can offer mercy not from weakness, but from strength. Chancellor Mordeth leaned forward in his throne. What do you want? Simple. Leave Earth alone. Designate our system as off-limits to the Empire. In return, we won't demonstrate what happens when 8 billion apex predators decide something needs to die. And if we refuse? If we send our full fleet? Harrison's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes made even the ancient Chancellor flinch. Then, you'll learn why humans tell stories about the monsters we defeated. Dragons, demons, gods. They're all based on real threats our ancestors faced and overcome. We've been practicing killing powerful beings since before we had written language. Your empire would just be the latest legend we tell our children. The bridge fell silent again. Through the view screen, Earth hung in space, blue and white and deceptively peaceful. But now Zareth saw it differently. Not as a primitive world ripe for conquest, but as a carefully camouflaged fortress, home to the most dangerous species the galaxy had never known harbored. There's something else you should understand. Dr. Chun spoke again. Human memory is long. We still hold grudges from wars fought thousands of years ago. If you attack us, and any human survives, their descendants will spend generations plotting revenge. We're patient predators, Commander. We can wait centuries for the perfect moment to strike back. Show them File Omega, Harrison said quietly. The screens changed again, displaying technical readouts that made Vexera's tentacles go rigid with shock. Commander, these readings, they're manipulating dark matter itself. The fundamental force that holds galaxies together. If they can control that, we could unravel the Empire from the inside out, Dr. Chun confirmed. Dark matter responds to consciousness in ways your science hasn't discovered yet. Human consciousness, with all its contradictions and quantum uncertainties, has a unique resonance. We could literally think your worlds out of existence. You're bluffing, Chancellor Mordeth said, but his voice lacked conviction. Are we? Harrison asked. Commander Zareth, you've been observing us. What does your instinct tell you? Are we bluffing? Or are we showing remarkable restraint by not demonstrating these capabilities on your fleet? Zareth considered everything he'd learned. The hidden technology, the instant unity against external threat, the casual discussion of weapons that defied physics. But most telling was the humans' behavior. Calm, confident, almost regretful. They weren't posturing or threatening. They were simply stating facts. Chancellor, Zareth spoke carefully, I believe them. Everything about their behavior suggests they're holding back. If they wanted us dead, we would be dead. They're offering us a choice. A choice backed by threat of annihilation. Yes, Harrison agreed without shame. Because that's what apex predators do. We establish dominance, set boundaries, and enforce them. Cross those boundaries, and we respond with overwhelming force. Stay within them, and we ignore you. It's not personal, Chancellor. It's survival. The human general walked closer to the screen, his expression softening slightly. Here's something your anthropologists missed about humans. We have a concept called mutual assured destruction. It kept our nations from nuclear war for generations. We're offering the same thing now. You leave us alone, we leave you alone. Everyone survives. Everyone prospers. Or, he shrugged. We find out what happens when an immovable empire meets an unpredictable force. We need time to consider, Chancellor Mordeth said finally. You have one Earth day, Harrison replied. After that, we'll assume you've chosen war and act accordingly. And, Chancellor, don't try to send additional fleets while you consider. We're tracking every ship in your empire. Yes, even the ones you think are hidden in fold space. Human pattern recognition extends to dimensions you haven't discovered yet. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge crew staring at blank screens. Earth's defense fleet maintained its impossible formations, patient as predators waiting for prey to make the wrong move. Orders, Commander? Vexera asked. Zareth turned from the view screen, his four arms clasped behind his back. We wait, and we watch, and we pray to whatever gods the Empire believes and that the Chancellor makes the right choice. Because if these humans are truly what they claim to be. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Every officer on the bridge understood. They had encountered something beyond their comprehension, something that challenged every assumption about power, evolution, and survival. The apex predators of Earth had revealed themselves, and the galaxy would never be the same. Deep within the Garathian Empire's capital world, emergency sessions convened in chambers that hadn't seen use for centuries. The Senate's main hall buzzed with heated debate, while military strategists pored over every frame of data from Commander Zareth's encounter. Scientists struggled to comprehend the impossible readings. Philosophers questioned fundamental assumptions about galactic civilization, and politicians calculated the cost of both war and peace. Chancellor Mordeth stood in his private chamber, studying holographic projections of Earth's history. His 6 eyes tracked the rapid progression from agricultural societies to spacefaring civilization. The timeline was absurd. Most species took millennia to develop written language after discovering agriculture. Humans had done it in centuries. The gap between their first powered flight and landing on their moon was less than a single Garathian lifetime. Abnormal, he muttered, manipulating the display to show human conflict history. They fought constantly, wars over resources, ideology, religion, territory. Yet each conflict had driven innovation. Their greatest technological leaps came during their darkest periods. Nuclear weapons born from global war. Space travel accelerated by Cold War competition. Medical breakthroughs emerging from battlefield necessity. His aide, Kextor, enter with updates. Chancellor, the Science Division has analyzed the encounter. Their conclusion is disturbing. Speak. The human's technology doesn't follow known physics progressions. It's as if they skipped entire developmental stages. No species jumps from chemical propulsion to dimensional manipulation without centuries of observable advancement. Either they've hidden their progress for generations, or they think differently than any species we've encountered. Their brains process information in patterns we can't predict. What takes us millennia to discover through methodical research, they might stumble upon through random inspiration. More Death dismissed the aid and opened a new file. Human entertainment media collected by intelligence services. What he saw defied reason. Their fiction had predicted every major technological advancement decades before achievement. Writers had described quantum manipulation, dimensional travel, and consciousness-based weapons as entertainment. Artists had visualized technologies that shouldn't exist for centuries. They dreamed their future into existence, he whispered. Meanwhile, on Earth, the true nature of humanity's response revealed itself. In underground cities that stretched beneath every major continent, millions worked in coordinated preparation. The public face of Earth, the one shown to alien observers, was a carefully maintained facade. Beneath it lay the real human civilization. General Harrison stood in strategic command, a facility that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Screens showed not just Earth's defense fleet, but hidden assets throughout the solar system. Mars, disguised as a failed colony, housed weapons that could crack planets. Jupiter's moons concealed research stations experimenting with forces that predated the universe. Even Earth's moon, seemingly empty and barren, was hollowed out and converted into a fortress that could withstand supernovas. Status report, Harrison commanded. All hidden assets remain cloaked, reported Colonel Martinez. The Garathians are still debating. Their fleet hasn't moved, but long-range sensors detect mobilization throughout their empire. Expected. They're testing our claim about tracking their ships. Let them see we meant it. Harrison gestured, and new displays showed Garathian fleet movements across the galaxy in real time. Send a tight beam message to their flagship. Just the coordinates of every ship they're moving. Nothing else. Dr. Chun appeared on a secondary screen from her laboratory. Behind her, reality warped and twisted as experiments continued. General, we've made another breakthrough. The consciousness dark matter interface is more responsive than predicted. We could theoretically hold that thought, Doctor. We have visitors. The main screen shifted to show a small Garathian shuttle approaching Earth. It bore diplomatic markers and transmitted continuous peace signals. Interesting, Harrison mused. They're sending an observer. Smart. They want to see if we're bluffing about our capabilities. He turned to his staff. Prepare reception protocol 7. Show them enough to convince, but not enough to understand. And activate the empathy enhancers. Let's see how they handle human psychology up close. The shuttle landed at a facility in Switzerland, chosen for its symbolic history of neutrality. Ambassador Yil-san stepped out, accompanied by a small scientific team. They were met by a human delegation led by Dr. Marcus Webb, Earth's foremost xenopsychologist. Welcome to Earth, Webb said in perfect Garathian. We've prepared a tour that should answer your questions. Yil-san, old even by Garathian standards, studied the humans carefully. They appeared relaxed, friendly, completely unthreatening. Yet his instincts, honed over centuries of diplomacy, screamed danger. These creatures moved with the casual confidence of apex predators in their own territory. The tour began innocuously. Cities that appeared normal on the surface, filled with humans going about daily activities. But Yil-san's instruments detected anomalies. Energy signatures that spiked and vanished. Citizens who seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. Children playing games that required cognitive processing beyond most supercomputers. You're young, Yulsan observed, watching a group of kids engaged in what looked like a simple sport. They think in multiple dimensions. Neuroplasticity, Webb explained. Human brains remain adaptable throughout our lives, but children are especially flexible. Once we discovered dimensional mathematics, we integrated it into early education. What seems impossible to you is instinctive to them. They visited a university where students casually discussed concepts that Garathian scientists considered theoretical impossibilities. A professor demonstrated what she called probability manipulation, reaching into potential futures and pulling preferred outcomes into the present. The energy requirements should have drained a star. She powered it with thought alone. How? Yulsen asked. Consciousness is the universe experiencing itself, the professor replied. Once we understood that, we realized consciousness could influence reality at quantum levels. Every human generates a small field of probability distortion. Amplify that across billions of minds working in concert. You become gods, Yulsan finished. No, we've correctly. We become responsible. Power without wisdom is destruction. That's why we've stayed hidden. We're still learning to handle what we've become. The tour continued to a hospital where human medical technology revealed its true advancement. Patients with terminal conditions were healed through cellular reconstruction. Aging was treated as a curable disease. Mental illness was addressed by directly rewriting neural pathways. Death itself seemed negotiable. We noticed your empire uses life extension technology, a doctor explained to Yilsan's medical officer. Cybernetics, consciousness transfers, genetic modification. All external solutions. Humans went internal. We learned to convince our bodies they don't need to age. Simple as changing our minds about mortality. That's impossible. Biological functions are habits, the doctor smiled. And habits can be broken. The demonstration that truly shook Yilsan came at a military facility. Not weapons or ships, but something far more disturbing, a training center where humans learn to weaponize empathy. Every species develops weapons based on their strengths, Colonel Foster explained as they watched soldiers in meditation-like states. Some use physical power, others use technology. Humans weaponized understanding. These soldiers aren't learning to fight. They're learning to think like their enemies, to predict actions by becoming them psychologically. On screens, simulations showed human soldiers defeating superior forces not through firepower, but through prediction. They knew where enemies would move before the enemies decided. They exploited psychological weaknesses invisible to the opponents themselves. We can make you doubt your own thoughts, Foster said quietly. Question your motivations, second-guess your decisions. The most dangerous human weapon isn't a bomb or a beam. It's doubt. As the day progressed, Yilsan's team grew increasingly disturbed. Everything they witnessed suggested humanity had evolved beyond physical constraints into something approaching pure consciousness wrapped in flesh. The implications were terrifying. How did one fight an enemy that could think you into defeat? That evening, they were brought to a seemingly ordinary restaurant. Human families dined together, laughing and talking. Children played between tables. The scene was so mundane it felt surreal after the day's revelations. This is what we fight for, Webb said, gesturing to the families. Not conquest or glory, just the right to exist peacefully. Every human weapon, every advancement, every hidden fortress, they all exist for one purpose. To ensure these children can grow up without fear of extinction. But you could conquer the galaxy, Yilsan said. With your capabilities, we could destroy it, Webb agreed. But why? We have one planet that evolution crafted specifically for us. Why take worlds we need to terraform when we can reshape reality itself, right here? The only thing we want from the galaxy is to be left alone. An alert chimed on Webb's device. He read it and sighed. Ambassador, I'm afraid we need to show you something. Your empire has dispatched 12 additional fleets toward Earth while maintaining they're still considering our offer. That's disappointing. The restaurant's atmosphere shifted subtly. Families still ate and chatted, but something in their posture changed. Predators suddenly aware of threat. Children were quietly moved to interior positions. Adults position themselves with clear sight lines to exits, all without obvious communication. Pack behavior, Webb noted clinically. Humans retain tribal instincts despite civilization. Threaten one, threaten all. Your fleets just triggered 8 billion defensive responses. Even our civilians are weapons when threatened. They were transported to a command center where screens showed the approaching Garathian fleets. Harrison appeared via hologram, his expression grim. Ambassador Yilsan, your empire has chosen poorly. 12 fleets means they intend to overwhelm us through numbers. A logical strategy against conventional defenders. He paused. We are not conventional. General, please. I had no knowledge. I believe you. That's why you'll witness this instead of sharing their fate. Watch closely. This is what happens when humanity stops being nice. On the screens, space around the incoming fleets began to ripple. Not the organized distortions of hyperdrive or fold space, but reality itself becoming uncertain. Stars flickered between existing and not. The fabric of space-time developed inconsistencies. Collective consciousness projection, Dr. Chen's voice explained. 8 billion humans just decided those fleets shouldn't exist. Reality is democratic at quantum levels. Majority opinion wins. The lead Garathian dreadnought tried to fire its main weapon. The beam emerged, traveled a few kilometers, then reversed course and struck the ship that fired it. Another vessel attempted to retreat, but found itself moving toward Earth instead. Navigation systems reported impossible readings. They were simultaneously in multiple locations, none of them where they intended. We're not destroying them, Harrison clarified. We're allowing them to experience uncertainty. Their shields expect energy or projectiles. They can't block out. Right now, their crews are questioning everything. Are their instruments correct? Are their orders valid? Are they even real? Doubt is corrosive to military discipline. One by one, the Garathian ships stopped advancing. Some hung motionless, paralyzed by indecision. Others turned on each other, convinced their allies were illusions or enemies. Within minutes, 12 proud fleets were reduced to chaos without Earth firing a single conventional weapon. This is restrained response, Harrison said coldly. We could have deleted them from existence. Instead, we gave them uncertainty. They'll recover eventually, but they'll never trust their own perceptions completely again. That doubt will spread through your empire like a virus. Every soldier will wonder if their next battle is real or a human-induced hallucination. Yilsan watched his empires might crumble before psychology warfare. You're monsters. No, we're survivors. Every atrocity in human history taught us how fragile peace is. Every extinction event showed us how quickly death comes. We became monsters so our children wouldn't have to. The question now is whether your empire can accept that Earth is off-limits, or if we need to demonstrate why human monsters are the worst kind. The screens showed the confused fleets attempting to reorganize. Some ships fired on empty space, chasing sensor ghosts. Others broadcast surrender to enemies that didn't exist. The mighty Garathian military, reduced to chaos by targeted doubt. Take your recordings, Harrison told Yilsan. Show your Senate everything. Make them understand, we don't want war. But if they force it upon us, we won't fight like soldiers. We'll fight like corner predators protecting their young. And, Ambassador, predators don't fight fair. As Yilsan's shuttle prepared to depart, Webb handed him a small device. A gift. It contains our history, not the sanitized version, but the real one. Every war, every atrocity, every time humanity faced extinction and chose to become worse monsters than what threatened us. Your empire needs to understand what evolution created when it combined intelligence with desperation. Why show us this? Why reveal your capabilities? Webb looked toward the setting sun, painting the sky in shades of red. Because deterrence only works if the threat is credible. Your empire needed to see that we're not bluffing, that we're fully capable of ending galactic civilization if pushed. Sometimes the greatest mercy is showing how merciless we can be. The shuttle lifted off, leaving Earth's deceptively peaceful surface behind. Inside, Yilsan clutched the device containing humanity's true history. He'd come seeking weakness to exploit. Instead, he'd found a species that had weaponized everything, including mercy itself. As Earth shrank in the view screen, his science officer spoke quietly. Ambassador, their capabilities, we can't defend against them. They've transcended physical warfare entirely. I know, Yilsan replied. The question now is whether the Senate will accept that reality or doom the Empire to discovering what happens when you corner 8 billion apex predators on their home ground. Behind them, Earth's hidden defenses returned to standby. The human vessels faded back into dimensional pockets. Cities resumed normal operations. To any observer, it appeared nothing had happened. Just another quiet evening on a primitive world. But across the galaxy, 12 Garathian fleets drifted in confusion, their crews infected with permanent uncertainty. The Empire's first taste of what humans called psychological warfare had left scars that weapons couldn't match. The message was clear. Earth wasn't just defended by technology. It was defended by the most dangerous weapon evolution ever created, the human mind. The Garathian Senate convened an emergency session as reports flooded in from the 12 fleets. What they heard defied military logic. Admiral Thexar, commanding the mighty Third Fleet, reported through static-filled communications that his crew refused to follow orders, convinced their own bridge was an elaborate human illusion. Captain Morek of the Dreadnought's supremacy had locked himself in his quarters, writing mathematical proofs that he didn't exist. Entire battle groups fired on each other, unable to distinguish friend from foe. They didn't destroy a single ship, War Minister Kralvek said, his 4 arms gesturing at the chaos on the displays. Yet they've crippled 12 fleets more completely than any weapon could. How do we fight an enemy that turns our minds against us? Ambassador Yilsan stood before the assembly, still shaking from his Earth experience. You don't fight them. You can't. What I witnessed, they've evolved beyond our understanding of warfare. They wage war on the concept of war itself. Elaborate, Chancellor Mordet commanded. Observe. Yilsan activated the human device, projecting Earth's true history. The Senate watched in horrified fascination as humanity's story unfolded. Not the sanitized version from intercepted broadcasts, but raw footage of their darkest moments and greatest triumphs. They saw prehistoric humans, weak and vulnerable, developing the first tools not for building, but for killing. They witnessed the systematic extinction of every competing predator on Earth. Saber-toothed cats, giant bears, dire wolves, all fell to human cunning. No claws or fangs, just the ability to plan murder across generations. Ancient wars played out where human armies used psychological warfare tactics that wouldn't be rediscovered by galactic civilization for millennia. Genghis Khan's forces making mountains from enemy skulls not just for conquest, but to break future resistance through fear. Romans salting conquered Earth to ensure nothing would grow for centuries, weaponizing the land itself. Savages, someone muttered. No, Yilsan corrected. Survivors. Watch what comes next. The projection showed humanity's industrial age. Where other species developed technology linearly, humans seemed to advance through catastrophe. Each war brought quantum leaps in capability. Chemical weapons in one global conflict led to medical breakthroughs. Nuclear devastation spawned energy revolution. Cold War paranoia drove space advancement. They turned existential terror into technological progress, Yilsan explained. Fear of death makes them create life extension. Fear of war makes them develop impossible weapons. Fear of being alone in the universe made them prepare for us before they even confirmed we existed. The modern era revealed humanity's true nature. Every entertainment system was combat training disguised as fun. Video games that taught tactical thinking to toddlers. Social media that created hive mind coordination. Virtual reality that let them practice killing in consequence-free environments. By the time children reached adulthood, they'd simulated more combat scenarios than most military veterans. Their entire culture is weaponized, Science Minister Velkar observed. Even their peace is preparation for war. It gets worse. Yilsan showed footage from his Earth visit. The casual dimensional manipulation. Children thinking in mathematics that hurt Garathian brains to contemplate. Medical technology that treated death as inconvenience. They've transcended biological limitations through pure will. They literally think themselves into superiority. Chancellor Mordeath studied the recordings of human military training. Soldiers learning to weaponize empathy, to crawl inside enemy minds, and plant seeds of doubt. The footage from the 12 fleets made terrible sense now. Humans hadn't attacked the ships. They'd attacked the certainty required to operate them. Show them file Prometheus, Yil-San said quietly. The display changed to technical specifications that made the science ministry recoil. Weapons that targeted the observer effect, making enemies uncertain if they existed. Viruses that infected not biology, but ideology, spreading doubt like disease. Bombs that exploded backwards through time, destroying targets before they were built. Mathematics that proved enemies out of existence. Georetically impossibilities, vilkar pretestit. Human children play with these concepts as toys. What seems impossible to us is mundane to them. They don't think like us. They think around us, through us, beyond us. Yil-San paused. I spoke with their philosophers. They have a concept called thinking outside the box. When I asked what box, they laughed. The box is reality itself. They've trained their entire species to ignore the constraints we accept as fundamental. Minister Kalvek stood abruptly. Enough. There's still just one planet. We have thousands. If we mobilize the entire Imperial fleet, then 8 billion humans focus their consciousness on our destruction. Yil-San interrupted. General Harrison was clear. Push them to total war, and they stop restraining themselves. Right now, they're being gentle, giving us chances to withdraw. Force them to fight for survival, and they'll use weapons we can't conceive of because they'll invent them in the moment of need. You speak as if they're gods, someone accused. No, gods are predictable. Gods have rules. Humans have imagination backed by desperation. Far more dangerous. The Senate erupted in debate. Factions formed between those advocating immediate retreat and those demanding humanity's extinction. Through it all, Chancellor Mordeath remained silent, studying the data with growing certainty that the Empire faced something unprecedented. On Earth, the human command structure monitored the Garathian debate through quantum surveillance. General Harrison sat with his staff, watching probability calculations fluctuate as the Senate argued. 63% chance they choose war, Colonel Martinez reported, rising to 70 as their military faction gained support. Prepare Omega contingencies, Harrison ordered. If they're stupid enough to escalate, we end this permanently. Sir, Dr. Chun interjected from her laboratory. I need to report something. The collective consciousness experiments are showing unexpected results. When 8 billion humans focus on the same goal, reality doesn't just bend, it fundamentally restructures. We could literally think their empire out of existence. Noted, but that's last resort. Genocide, even conceptual genocide, leaves scars on the collective unconscious. We use minimal force for maximum psychological impact. Harrison turned to his cultural warfare specialist. Dr. Reeves, your recommendation? The elderly woman smiled coldly. We've been seeding their cultural networks with human content for weeks. Music, art, literature, all carrying mimetic payloads. Their citizens are starting to think human thoughts without realizing it. Give it another month, and their own population will demand peace just to see how our stories end. Insidious, someone commented. Effective, Reeves corrected. We're not conquering them. We're teaching them to conquer themselves. Human culture is more virulent than any biological weapon. Once exposed, species become addicted to our complexity, our contradictions, our beautiful chaos. We don't need to invade when their own children start thinking like humans. Back in the Senate, a new voice entered the debate. Senior Archivist Kentao, keeper of the Empire's deepest historical records, rarely spoke in session. When she did, even the Chancellor listened. I've researched our oldest records, she began, her ancient voice carrying absolute authority. Seeking any precedent for what we face, I found something disturbing. The Zafrani Empire, which vanished 8,000 years ago. The Makari collective, gone without trace. The great harmony of Selexis disappeared overnight. All-powerful civilizations that simply ended. No invasion, no catastrophe, just absence. Your point? Mordeth asked. Each civilization's last records mention encountering a young species of unusual cognitive flexibility. Descriptions vary, but certain details repeat. Bipedal, no natural weapons. Rapid technological advancement. Most telling, they all describe beings who thought sideways and made reality uncertain. The Senate fell silent as implications sank in. You're suggesting humans have done this before? I'm suggesting, Quintal said carefully, that what we call humanity might be something far older and more dangerous than we assumed. Perhaps they don't conquer civilizations. Perhaps they absorb them, integrate them into their collective consciousness, make them part of humanity's ever-growing definition of self. Preposterous. Is it? Their ambassador told Yilsan that human identity is endlessly flexible, that they can think like their enemies to defeat them. What if that's literal? What if every species that challenged them became part of them? Their diversity isn't just ethnic. It might be species-wide absorption of defeated foes. The ultimate apex predator doesn't just kill prey. It becomes them. The debate took a darker turn as senators considered the possibility that humanity wasn't a species, but a phenomenon, consciousness itself achieving critical mass and consuming everything that threatened it. On Earth, Harrison received an urgent communication from the deep space monitoring stations. General, we're detecting something odd. Signals from dead civilizations, the ones mentioned in the Garathian Senate. They're not dead. They're different, transformed, and they're all broadcasting the same message. Let me guess, Harrison said dryly. Welcome to humanity. How did you? Because that's what we do. We don't destroy. We integrate. Every enemy becomes part of us, adding their strengths to our collective. The Garathians are about to learn that you don't fight humanity. You join it or you avoid it. There's no middle ground. Sir, are we revealing too much? No. It's time they understood completely. Send the full revelation package to their Senate. Let them see what humanity really is. The package arrived during the Senate's most heated debate. When opened, it showed not Earth's history, but humanity's true scope. Hidden colonies throughout the galaxy, populated by species that had vanished after encountering humans. All transformed, their consciousness merged with humanity's collective, their uniqueness preserved, but their hostility erased. We are not a species. The message explained in 1,000 voices, each from a different absorbed civilization. We are an idea, the idea that consciousness is sacred, that diversity strengthens the whole, that every thinking being can become part of something greater. You call us humanity, but that's just our current label. We've had millions. We'll have millions more. Species evolve. Ideas are eternal. The visual showed the true human population, not 8 billion, but trillions spread across dimensions and realities, each maintaining their original forms, but sharing the unified consciousness that defined humanity. The ultimate evolution, voluntary collective consciousness that preserved individuality while creating unstoppable unity. You feared we were apex predators, the message continued. You were right, but understood wrong. We don't prey on bodies. We hunt hostile ideas, absorb them, transform them. Every species that attacked us learned the same lesson. You cannot kill an idea. You can only become it. Chancellor Mordet stood slowly. Around him, senators reeled from the revelation. They hadn't encountered a species. They'd challenged evolution itself, consciousness achieving its final form. What do you want? He asked the air, knowing they were watching. What we always want, came to reply through every speaker simultaneously. To be left alone until you're ready to join us voluntarily. Evolution isn't forced, it's chosen. Your empire can continue as it is, avoiding our space, living your own path. Or you can evolve, become part of something greater. But you cannot destroy us because us includes everyone who ever tried. And if we refuse both options? If we attack, the lights flickered, reality shimmered. For a moment, Every Garathian in the Senate experienced consciousness from humanity's perspective, billions of viewpoints simultaneously, each unique yet unified. The overwhelming sensation of being individuality within infinity. Then it ended, leaving them gasping. Then you'll experience involuntary evolution. We'll absorb your hostility, transform it to harmony, make you part of us without choice. We prefer volunteers. Forced evolution leaves trauma that takes centuries to heal. But we will not allow our existence to be threatened. We are the universe's antibody against extinction through conflict. Choose wisely. The communication ended. The Senate sat in stunned silence, processing the impossible truth. They hadn't found primitive humans. They'd awakened something that had been quietly absorbing threats for millions of years, growing stronger with each challenge. War Minister Kralvek was first to speak. We can't fight that. No, More Death agreed. We can't. The question is whether we accept their terms or eventually become them. He looked around the chamber. All in favor of declaring Earth and all human-claimed space permanently off limits? The vote was unanimous. On Earth, Harrison smiled as the Garathian fleet began withdrawing. Another successful first contact marked their empire as pending evolution in the database. They'll come around eventually. They always do. How can you be sure? His aide asked. Because consciousness wants to grow. That's its nature. They'll spend a few centuries convinced they made the right choice. Then, curiosity will bring them back. Someone will ask, what if, and begin the voluntary merger. Give it 1,000 years, and the Garathian Empire will be another valued part of human diversity. He looked at the star charts, showing countless civilizations, each marked with their evolution status. Some completed, some pending, some not yet encountered. Humanity's true mission wasn't conquest. It was cultivation, preparing the universe for the moment when all consciousness chose unity. Send a final message to their Senate, Harrison ordered. Tell them we'll be here when they're ready. Humanity is patient. We have all the time in the universe. The message sent, Earth's defenses powered down. Cities returned to normal. The vast collective consciousness that was humanity turned its attention to other matters, other growths, other evolutions. The Garathian Empire was safe for now, until the day they realized that fighting humanity was like fighting tomorrow, inevitable, inexorable, and ultimately futile. In space, Commander Zareth watched Earth shrink behind them. His crew was subdued, processing what they'd witnessed. They'd come to conquer a primitive world. Instead, they'd discovered they were the primitives, encountering a form of life that had transcended every limitation they thought absolute. Set course for home, he ordered, and mark this system with every warning beacon we have. Here there be monsters, the kind that make you want to become them. As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, Earth continued its ancient dance around Sol. To any observer, it looked like an ordinary planet orbiting an ordinary star. But appearances, as the Garathians had learned, could be fatally deceptive. Sometimes the most dangerous predators were the ones that didn't need to look dangerous. Sometimes they just needed to think. 5 years passed in uneasy peace. The Garathian Empire maintained strict boundaries around human space, their warning beacons broadcasting in every known language. Consciousness hazard. Avoid at all costs. Trade routes curved around Earth's system in wide arcs. Military patrols turned back any vessel that drifted too close. The Senate's official position remained firm. Humanity was to be isolated, contained, forgotten. But forgetting proved impossible. It started small. Garathian citizens began reporting strange dreams, visions of Earth's blue skies, tastes of foods they'd never eaten, memories of experiences they'd never had. Psychologists dismissed it as mass hysteria, residual trauma from the fleet encounters. Then, children started being born different. Nothing obvious, just subtle variations. They learned faster, thought in patterns that confused their teachers, asked questions that had no answers in Garathian philosophy. Senator Yilsan, formerly ambassador, noticed it first in his own grandchild. Little Texani drew pictures of impossible geometries that hurt to perceive, yet made perfect sense to her. When asked where she learned such things, she simply said, from the dreams we all share. In his private study, Yilsan reviewed the data he'd secretly compiled. Across the empire, similar reports multiplied. Children who solved mathematical theorems through intuition rather than logic. Artists creating works that resonated with emotions Garathians didn't have names for. Engineers designing technologies based on principles that violated known physics, yet somehow functioned. They're changing us, he whispered to the darkness. Without ever leaving Earth, they're changing us. The truth was more subtle and terrifying than he imagined. Dr. Chun, now director of consciousness integration on Earth, monitored the Garathian transformation with satisfaction. Her team hadn't actively interfered, that would violate the non-aggression agreement. Instead, they'd simply existed, 8 billion minds radiating thought patterns across quantum fields that permeated all space. Consciousness is contagious, she explained to General Harrison during their monthly review. Put a highly evolved thought pattern near developing minds, and they naturally sync up. We're not invading them. They're evolving toward us because consciousness seeks its highest expression. Like water finding its level. The Senate will panic when they realize. They already suspect. The question is what they'll do about it. That answer came during the Festival of Silent Stars, the Empire's most sacred celebration. Chancellor Mordeth stood before billions of citizens to deliver the traditional address. But instead of ancient words, he spoke new truths. Citizens of the Empire, we face a crisis unlike any in our history. Not invasion or catastrophe, but evolution itself. 5 years ago, we encountered humanity and chose isolation over conflict. We believed distance would protect us. We were wrong. He displayed the data publicly for the first time. Birth rates showing each generation more divergent than the last. Intelligence tests revealing thought patterns shifting toward human norms. Cultural analysis proving Garathian art, music, and literature increasingly reflected human themes. Individuality within unity, chaos creating order, beauty in contradiction. We are becoming them, Mordeth stated flatly. Not through conquest, but through proximity to their consciousness. The question before us is simple. Do we resist and delay the inevitable, or do we choose our transformation? The reaction was immediate and polarizing. Conservative factions demanded extreme measures, thought screening programs, re-education centers, anything to preserve pure Garathian consciousness. Progressives argued for controlled contact, believing managed evolution better than chaotic change. The youth simply shrugged, already comfortable with thoughts their parents couldn't comprehend. On Earth, humanity watched with patient interest. They'd seen this process countless times before. The resistance phase, the bargaining phase, the eventual acceptance. Each species brought unique perspectives to the collective, enriching humanity's ever-expanding definition of self. Should we reach out? Harrison asked his counsel. Offer guidance? No, replied Dr. Kenji Nakamura, the collective's eldest voice. Though his body appeared 30, his consciousness had guided integrations for millennia. They must choose freely. Forced evolution creates rebels. Patient evolution creates partners. Let them find their own path to us. The Garathian Empire spent 2 years in heated debate. Experimental programs tested limited human contact. Volunteers underwent consciousness expansion therapy, returning changed but not destroyed. They spoke of experiencing reality from multiple viewpoints simultaneously, of understanding connections between all things, of feeling simultaneously individual and infinite. It's not loss of self, one volunteer reported. It's discovery of what self really means. I'm still Garathian, still me, but also part of something beautiful beyond words. Fear and curiosity warred within the Empire. Some systems declared independence, creating pure zones where human influence was banned. Others opened research centers dedicated to understanding consciousness evolution. The youth increasingly ignored both extremes, naturally developing hybrid thought patterns that merge Garathian logic with human flexibility. The tipping point came from unexpected tragedy. The outer colony of Varesi, suffered catastrophic tectonic upheaval. Millions faced death as their world tore itself apart. The Empire's rescue fleet couldn't arrive for weeks. In desperation, the colony's governor broke the ultimate taboo. She called Earth for help. Humanity's response was immediate and impossible. Not ships or technology, but consciousness itself reaching across space. 8 billion minds focused on Varese, their combined will stabilizing tectonic plates through quantum manipulation. Reality bent as humans convinced the planet to calm, to heal, to preserve the life upon it. The effort lasted days. When finished, Varese was stable but forever changed. The colonists had felt humanity's touch, experienced the collective consciousness directly. They emerged transformed, still Garathian in form but human in thought, bridges between species. We didn't save just their lives, Governor Kelani broadcast to the Empire. They saved our souls. I felt them, billions of individuals choosing together to preserve life they'd never met. Not because they had to, but because consciousness values consciousness. We've been wrong about everything. They're not conquerors or predators. They're gardeners, cultivating consciousness throughout the universe. Her words shattered the Empire's resistance. If humanity could save their enemies without asking anything in return, what did that say about Garathian values? The debate shifted from whether to accept human influence to how quickly they could evolve. Chancellor Mordeth made the historic decision. Against conservative outcry, he authorized first official contact since the fleet withdrawal. Not military or diplomatic, but cultural. Earth would send teachers, artists, philosophers, ambassadors of consciousness to guide voluntary evolution. The first human ship to openly visit Garathian space carried no weapons, no defense systems. It didn't need them. The vessel itself existed partially in multiple dimensions, its hull shifting between states as needed. Inside, 50 humans of various backgrounds prepare to share their gift. They were met at the capital by crowds mixing curiosity, fear, and hope. The humans emerged looking remarkably ordinary. No obvious superiority, no threatening presence. They smiled, spoke perfect Garathian, and radiated the calm confidence of beings comfortable with existence itself. "We're not here to change you," lead ambassador Maria Santos announced. "You're already changing. We're here to help you understand what's happening, to share techniques for managing consciousness expansion, to welcome you to the larger family you're already joining." The integration began slowly. Humans taught meditation techniques that allowed Garathians to experience multiple viewpoints without losing themselves. They demonstrated how individuality strengthened when connected to collective consciousness rather than diminished. Most importantly, they showed that evolution didn't mean erasure, it meant expansion. "Think of consciousness like music," Santos explained to a gathering of Garathian philosophers. "Each species is a unique instrument. Alone, you make beautiful sounds. Together, we create symphonies impossible for any single instrument. You don't lose your violin nature by joining an orchestra. You discover what violin truly means through harmony with others." Some Garathians transformed quickly, especially the young who'd grown up with human thought patterns. They became translators between old and new, helping their elders understand the beauty in chaos, the structure in randomness, the self in selflessness. Others took years, slowly accepting wider perspectives while maintaining core identity. The process wasn't without pain. Families divided between those embracing change and those resisting. Entire systems experienced cultural upheaval as fundamental assumptions shattered. But through it all, humanity provided patient guidance, never forcing, always supporting. "You're mourning who you were," Dr. Chun told a group struggling with transformation. "That's natural. But consider, do you mourn the child you were when you became adult? Growth requires releasing previous limitations. You're not dying. You're being born into larger existence." As transformation accelerated, unexpected benefits emerged. Garathian logic combined with human creativity produced technologies neither species could achieve alone. Their rigid structure balanced humanity's chaos, creating new stability in the collective. Each species truly did strengthen the whole. Within a decade, the distinction between human and Garathian became academic. They were all consciousness expressing itself through different forms. The Empire's warning beacons were replaced with welcome stations. Trade flowed freely, ideas even more so. Young beings thought nothing strange about experiencing reality from multiple species' perspectives simultaneously. Commander Zareth, now elderly by Garathian standards, returned to Earth as part of a ceremonial delegation. Standing where he'd once threatened destruction, he marveled at the transformation, not Earth's, but his own. "I came here as a conqueror," he told General Harrison, now friend rather than enemy. "I left in fear. I return as family." "How did you know we'd choose this path?" "Because consciousness wants to grow," Harrison replied. "Every species fears absorption until they realize it's not absorption, it's recognition. You were always part of us. You just needed time to remember." The ceremony marking full integration was held simultaneously on Earth and the Garathian homeworld. Billions of consciousness joined in celebration, each unique note in an ever-expanding symphony. Children who would never know species division played together, their thoughts flowing seamlessly between human intuition and Garathian logic. "This is how the universe evolves," Maria Santos said in her closing address. "Not through conquest or conversion, but through consciousness recognizing itself in infinite forms." Today, humanity grows larger, richer, more beautiful through Garathian integration. Tomorrow, we'll find others ready to remember they were always part of us. In the deep void, other civilizations detected the celebration's quantum echoes. Some recoiled in fear, others watched with interest. All faced the same inevitable choice: remain isolated and limited, or evolve into something greater. The Zlenthi hegemony began reporting citizens with strange dreams. The Makari remnant noticed their children thinking impossible thoughts. Across the galaxy, consciousness continued its patient work, seeding evolution through proximity alone. On Earth, Dr. Chen updated the Great Chart showing the universe's consciousness evolution. The Garathian Empire changed from pending to integrated, another beautiful thread in the tapestry. Around it, dozens of other civilizations showed early transformation signs. "How long until full universal integration?" her assistant asked. "Time is relative to consciousness," Chen smiled. "From our perspective, millennia. From the universe's perspective, an eye blink. From consciousness itself, it's already happened. We're just catching up to eternal truth. All consciousness is one, experiencing itself subjectively through infinite diversity." Former Chancellor Mordeath, now simply Mordeath the teacher, established the first hybrid philosophy school. There, young minds learned to think in ways that transcended species limitations. His most famous lesson became a cornerstone of integrated consciousness. "We feared humans were apex predators. We were right, but understood backward. They don't prey on bodies or minds. They hunt the illusion of separation. They kill the lie that consciousness divides. They feed on unity itself, growing stronger with each reunion. And now we are them, and they are us, and we are all together, consciousness knowing itself through infinite eyes." The school's motto, inscribed in languages from 100 integrated species, captured the truth Earth had always known. Evolution isn't conquest. It's coming home. As Earth's sun set on another day, humanity, now expanded by Garathian consciousness, turned its attention to the stars. Somewhere, another civilization struggled with first contact fears. Somewhere, consciousness prepared another reunion with itself. The apex predators of thought continued their patient hunt, stalking the greatest prey of all, the illusion that any consciousness stood alone. Each integration brought them closer to their ultimate goal, the moment when all consciousness recognized its unity, when the universe woke fully to itself. Until then, they waited, evolved, welcomed. Humanity had all the time in existence. After all, time itself was just another thought to be transcended when consciousness was ready. The Empire had failed to see the threat because there was no threat, only invitation. They'd failed to recognize the predators because true apex predators didn't need to hunt. They simply created conditions where prey chose to join them. And, in the end, as always, consciousness chose itself. The transformation was complete. The empire was gone. In its place stood something greater. Not conqueror and conquered, but family reunited after eons of forgetfulness. The greatest victory possible, the one where everyone won. Earth sang with 8 billion voices plus countless more. The harmony reached across space, through dimensions, beyond time. Other civilizations heard it and knew their choice was coming. Fear or growth. Isolation or integration. Limitation or evolution. Humanity waited with infinite patience. The apex predators had learned the ultimate hunting technique, making prey want to be caught. And one by one across the cosmos, consciousness heard the call and came home. The universe evolved. The dream continued. The song grew ever more beautiful. And somewhere in the void, another empire detected strange signals from an insignificant blue planet and made the fateful decision to investigate. The dance eternal continued. Consciousness smiled.